Ricky Gower,
Here.
Kevin Lott,
Here.
Mike Zershik.
Here.
We have a quorum,
Okay, thank you. So do we have any public comment?
not at this time.
Okay, perfect. Gonna go right into pension update. Gentlemen, you're up.
Okay.
Actually, I think I'm up first.
Todd up first?
Yeah, I think I'm up first.
Not according to the agenda.
Not according to the agenda. I'm on the defined contribution because John Murray can't attend until later.
Yep.
I'll just walk through this here. So, good morning. I'm filling in for John Murray. He'll be on around 9:30 in case you have any questions, and then we'll turn it over to the other John. This is just the 457s and the 401ks, just kind of circling back from some of the stuff we talked about last year on this. So breaking down the participants, 401A, 457 totals, you can see versus last year, kind of how some of the numbers have changed. And really what we're looking at is the 457, that participation is the average balance is going up, and then so is the median balance. And then we're having a lot of education as far as the 457s, because that's the employee money. 401A is the employer money, 457 is employee money. And then the counts. This is breaking down how many people we had in the plan as of now. It's 444 actively contributing, 267 active but not contributing, 18, and then obviously those separated from service. And you can see the difference versus last year at the same time. And this is really where we wanted to focus a little bit on. Last year, we talked about the stable value. This year, 22.3% of the total assets are in the stable value. And last year, it was 29. So we're making progress there. That's what we talked about with the education. And then the other one we wanted to talk about was the beneficiaries. Last year, remember, we had 34% that didn't have beneficiaries. Both means they have both a primary and a secondary, and then folks have a primary beneficiary. So we've done a really good job. I think there's only 7 active employees that do not have beneficiaries, and we're trying to go after them. The rest of them are folks that don't work here anymore, which is a little challenging trying to reach out to them by email, but we are still trying to do that. So I think that's a pretty good improvement. But we're doing, obviously, new people, we tell them to get signed up right away, but the people that already had it, it's a little bit of a challenge. And then kind of breaking down, you know, what the demographics are, the contributors, you know, the non-contributors. It's pretty much kind of interesting when you look at full-time, they're around average, 45 years old, have about 8.5 years of service, and they contribute medium contributions, 3%, which is no coincidence because on the non-union plan, there's a 3% match. So you put in 3, you get a 3% match. So coincidentally, that's the medium, but the average contribution is 6.3. Then we have some part-time folks, and they're contributing, their medium is about 9%. You can see demographics aren't that much different, maybe versus part-time, but for the most part, the demographics are relatively the same, a little bit older on the contributors for the part-time. And just some facts just to break it down. 83% of the non-union full-time participate in the 457. You break it down, again, that's based on that match. I think that has a lot to do with who's contributing to the 457. You break it down, full-time, part-time, male, female, it really doesn't impact. I think as long as we're contributing with that match, that's really the biggest factor in who participates. And then as far as Mission Square, Mission Square, I figured they changed the name 2 or 3 times. I got to remember what they're called this week. But they do quarterly visits, and on average, there's about 8 to 10 people that sign up. You can also do the virtuals. There's a lot of information on the website, so it's a lot of good stuff out there. And we do encourage a lot of participation. When we have the new hire orientation, we do encourage people to sign up. So we try to do a good job of encouraging people to participate because, as we all know, if you don't take the money out, once you take it out, you forget about it and it's there. But if you don't do it right away, you never do it. So if you can get them early and they do it, they forget that they even contributed. So you live off the net. And that's it. I'll keep it short and sweet because I want to pass it off to the real experts, but I just wanted to kind of walk through the 457, in case anybody has any questions.
I just want to reiterate what you said, that the match is what dictates the level of participation.
It is, and a lot of it, I mean,
Those that are really low participation rates, those are all part-time. The really low participation. Go back 2 slides, I think it is. That one, yeah. The 3 that are in the single digits, those are all part-time.
you're talking about yes, part-time, there's no match at all. And it works differently. For the union plans, they get the full amount of money, whether they participate or whether they contribute or not. The non-union get the same amount, but they have to contribute 3 to get the same amount.
Right.
So it's a little bit of a carrot there to make sure
Right.
that they participate. So it's the same amount of money, but in the non-union, you have to participate to get that full
Just
amount.
want to make sure I was
versus the
understanding
union.
it correctly.
So that's why you have a better participation. So we try to get the union to do that, but they don't necessarily like those kind of things. But at the end of the day, everybody gets the same amount because I think we only have like 2 or 3 people that aren't contributing to 3% on a non-union, just because they want to get that match.
I have
Yeah.
one question. A few slides back, you said the low percentage was because they were separated from service. Does that mean they're retired or they were terminated or
Correct.
both?
Correct. You can leave the money in there, so you don't necessarily have to take it out. So if you leave the money in there, then you have to have the money in there on 457 plan.
We have a minimum threshold dollar amount that we automatically disperse if they leave the airport.
We didn't, and I think we made the number, it was like less than 1,000, I think we started distributing them. But other than that, they could keep it in there, because it's pretty good as far as fees are concerned. You're not really paying the fees if you're on the plan, so it kind of works out a little bit better than if you went to a Vanguard or something like that, because you don't have the same fees. Great question, I'm sorry.
And one other question, the one number there that just stood out to me is the Teamster participation rate, 40%, much lower than the other unions and the non-union. Any idea why?
Well, you've got 2 factors here. Number one, they don't have the 3% match on the defined contribution, and on the non-union, the new hires are not in the pension plan. So in the union, they're still getting the pension plan.
Okay.
So maybe they don't feel like they need to contribute any of their own money. But again, it's valuable to all the folks.
Yep.
We try to encourage everyone to participate. I mean, our pension is not the teacher's pension plan, so you really should be contributing some of your own money. And if you do it early, it's not as hard to do when you try to catch up later in life.
And the employee reach out that you had a couple slides beyond this, that's union and non-union employees alike.
Yes, correct. You talking about this one?
Yeah.
Yeah, anyone can participate. He's here on site.
Okay.
And we encourage everyone to engage. I mean, there's some pretty nice things you can take advantage of.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get some certified investment advice if you're over a certain threshold for free. So it's some good stuff, including outside contributions. So you can kind of take a look at the whole mix. And their website incorporates not just what you contribute here. You can add in outside stuff, so you're looking at a bigger picture and not just what you have here. Any other questions?
I have one comment.
Yes.
In the beginning of this, you talked about, it was like 30-some% last year, up to 13%
Yes,
with the
beneficiaries.
beneficiaries.
Yes.
That was a big talking point here a year ago.
Yes.
So I just wanted to say that's awesome. I mean,
Great.
that's a 20% jump in
Yeah,
1
I
year
mean,
of people getting on that.
It's a lot of, I mean,
That's
it's a lot of
awesome.
outreach.
Right.
And literally, we have folks going out with laptops going, sign up, sign up.
I'm sure the employees don't appreciate it as much as they should, but that's a big thing.
Anything else? I'm not taking away all your time. I know you need time to kind of, All right, thank you.
Next time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, hi, I'm John Kateski, Oakmont Capital. This is Kyle. We manage the defined benefit plan, and we help consult on the defined contribution plans, the 401A and the 457 plan. But this is so we're going to cover the DB plan. There's 74 slides here. Todd wants us to cover 68 of them, so it's going to be a little slow.
And please just read them.
Wow.
No, we're just going to cover 10 to 15. The booklet is there for, I mean, there's all the detail that you might need if you have any questions that don't get addressed today or, other thoughts. Between both plans, the non-uniform and the union, it's about 19.4 million The plans are fully invested. The asset allocation strategy that is being applied, both plans are being managed the same way. It's about 60% equity, 40% fixed income. The third bullet point, over half the assets, whether it's on the fixed income or equity side, are in index funds or passive, and then the other half is in active where it makes sense. This is something this committee has, worked with over the last probably 6 or 7 years. It was at one point, it was at 7.75, which means that is what the plan has to earn.
Was that 8?
Or 8, yeah. It has to earn to maintain its funding status. And due to this committee, we've actually brought it down. And it makes the plan more conservative by meaning you actually decrease the funding status when that happens. And we're going to talk about the funding status. But if we would have kept it at 8%, the plan would actually be at like 110, 115% funded. But because you've been bringing that return assumption down, along with making extra contributions to the plan, it's actually made it much healthier. This is just for performance.
Thanks, John.
Absolutely, you're all welcome.
Yeah, John's been, yeah.
But 8 years now I've been banging that drum.
Yeah. In terms of performance, the goal is to be in the top half of your universe. Since, over the last 7-year period, it's kind of like when we came in, and you're in the top 30th percentile relative to approximately 3,200 other plans. So we'll continue. So, whoops, that one's a little.
Go back.
Zoom. So we show this chart all the time. I'll just spend 2 seconds. On the left is the index level. It's the S&P 500, calendar years across the bottom. We only update our charts through month end. This is through March 31st, but if you might say, hey, where were we as of last night? We're probably 200 points lower. We're roughly at 5,400 currently, which would put us right here today. So there's been from peak to trough, there's been about a 20% sell-off, but we have rebounded here recently. And just for perspective, this was the COVID sell-off right here in 20. And this right here was when the Fed started rapidly increasing interest rates coming out of 2022 just to help fight some of the inflation. This, maybe zoom it down. So what this is just interest rates. The key takeaway, and we're going to talk more about the market, is interest rates have normalized. And this is actually helping in the environment because the 40% of the money is in fixed income. 5-6 years ago, that 40% was only earning 1%. Today, at least, you can earn 4 or 5%, which really offsets some of the equity losses when they do occur. Okay, this one here is just unemployment. The takeaway is this chart is long-term from 1974 today. Our level right now, as of February, is 4.1%, which means by definition we're at full employment. And if you kind of look at it, going back over 50-some years, that really only occurred, 2 or 3 times. So basically, everybody that wants to work is working in this environment. This spike here was the unemployment rate, during COVID when basically the economy shut down. This we always put in here. It's very objective data. It's not subjective. How many people are going through TSA checkpoints on a 7-day moving average? And it's a little cloudy, but the gray bar here coming out of 2024, it was at an all-time high, even with the increase in airline prices. And here we are over here through the early part of 2025. So as you would know more than us, people are remaining to travel. This right here was COVID, when the airports, the volume really declined. Okay, and the next couple slides, we're just going to talk about the tariffs. And, every time there's a market sell-off, this is something I always, think about. Warren Buffett always says, be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. And it's just not something that, it's a nice cliche and something to be said. But the data actually suggests that. Okay, This is April 4th, 20 days ago. We had a 2-day sell-off of about 10.5%. It ranks 5th all time, right? It happened, it occurred. What's next? What does the future look like? And if you look at these other sell-offs, 1 year, 12 months later, this is what the market has done. 3 years out, this is what the market has done 5 years out. So when people are panicking and selling, you really do have to be in there buying, rebalancing. And what we always say is you have to just be comfortable being uncomfortable in these market environments. These are other bear markets. We technically went into a bear market with a 20% correction. This is the average bear market sell-off, but you kind of got to disregard some of the bigger numbers from the early part of the century because that's before the Fed really was in place. It was there to help protect the market. This number is probably closer to like 28% in modern times. So we got down around 21, 22. So you sit there and say, hey, if this is the average bear market, there might be a 6% more downside. But this is what happens, 1 month, 6 months, 1 year, 2 years after a bottom in a bear market is made. So you can't shy away from equities in here. You got to maintain your exposure. This one, to the fearful part, and we've talked about this historically. This chart is consumer confidence, and when the level is down here, people are fearful. This is put on a survey. They asked 500 people, basically 10 questions. They update it monthly at the University of Michigan. What do you think about the market? What do you think about the economy? What do you think about the economy going forward, the market? And oddly, this was through March, right? Before all the tariff stuff hit the market. Today, we are basically at the second lowest reading ever, going back to 1971. We're at 50.4, 50.7. And what this chart is saying is when we make this level, what happens over the next 12 months? So we were at this level coming out in June 22. The following 12 months, the market was up 17%. August 15.4, 22. Oppositely, when people really love the market, which would be represented up here, is what happens, over the next 12 months. So when people feel really comfortable, they're greedy, typically the return over the next 12 months is a negative number or a low digit positive return. And just for perspective, these gray bars are recessions. The wider the gray bar, the longer the recession. During COVID, we went into a small recession, but the Fed threw a ton of money at it, and we came out of it pretty unscathed that year. So I don't know if there are any economists out here. I'm going to take just 2 seconds on this chart. This is GDP, and it relates to tariffs. So M is basically imports. And to make this quite easy, like tariffs, if you have a 10 or 15% tariff applied onto a good, it's a one-time event. It's not like inflation. If inflation's growing at 6% a year, it's growing 6% this year, next year, the following year, okay? So let's use chocolate bars. So you can buy a chocolate bar, say every day you buy a chocolate bar from Nestle, it's an import. Okay, so it's coming in on the M. If they put a tariff on your $3 chocolate bar from Nestle's, it goes to $3.30. You can sit there and say, hey, I can pay that $3.30, or I could buy locally Hershey's and pay $3. So what happens is, if you make that decision, the imports go down, but your consumption domestically. So that C is what is being consumed in the US, okay? So you're still gonna spend your money. It's just you're not buying it internationally, you're buying it domestically. Or you could say, hey, I'm not gonna buy a chocolate bar, but that's usually not the case. So actually by the tariff occurring, you can actually increase domestic consumption. But let's look at 2 other components. The I is investment, okay? If you're Nestle's and you're like, you know what? I don't want to have my customers pay the tariff. They might set up a plant in the US, which would increase investment, okay? It's longer term, these plants are hard to set up, but it usually is a benefit to US GDP. The G is the second part, okay? The tariff, the 30 cents, and the 10% tariff on the Nestle's, that actually goes to the government. They would get 30 cents more in revenue. So potentially government spending could also increase. And the big thing I always hear in the media a lot about tariffs, oh, China's going to pay a tariff. Mexico is going to pay a tariff. Canada. Those countries, it doesn't cost them anything. It's cost us in this room. So if you're buying a chocolate bar and there's a 10% tariff, it's not Switzerland paying that 10%. It's you when you go to buy that chocolate bar. So the tariffs actually, increase the cost to the U.S. consumer. But so it's something to think about. That's why the market what's going on, I think, is the strategy around the tariffs and the timeline. And it's hard for these corporations to build a plant. You might spend 20, 40, $50 billion. And that's a big commitment. You don't see the fruits of that for 5, 7, 8 years. But the problem is the timeline. Like administrations change every 2 years. Or, Congress could come out and says, hey, the president doesn't have the authority to do tariffs and raise taxes. So even though the business leaders aren't saying this, they're having a hard time deploying capital because there's not like a long-term strategy. If they knew these tariffs were going to be in place for the next 10, 15 years, it would be easy for them. They're like, okay, we're going to move production here and build factories. But the thing is, as you know, and as we've seen, things can change with a tweet. And as an airport, it'd be like you trying to build a new runway and you don't know the rules of engagement. And that's what is the confusing part in the marketplace. So the summary of this is if you look at the models, if these tariffs would remain in place, GDP wouldn't go negative, it would decline, but it would be a one-time decline. It's all the strategy and the noise around it that is really confusing the market, which is making it hard.
Is X services and manufactured goods or just manufactured?
It's mostly manufactured goods. The U.S. consumption is services and goods.
Okay, thank you.
Right, like it comes down to, why am I going the wrong way?
That's okay, you don't need to go back to it.
Yeah. No, think about buying a car. If you needed a new car, right, you have a choice. Hey, do I pay the tariff and buy an international car, or do I not pay the tariff and buy a domestic car? And let's just kind of move. Are you doing it?
Yeah.
So the question is, do you not buy a car, or do you just, does the tariff sway your perception of what you're going to buy?
If you go even beyond that, from a tariff perspective, I'll give you a live example.
Yeah.
I'm obviously a community banker,
Yeah.
so I do a lot of small businesses. Got one of our customers is a small craft distiller, and they needed to place a bottle order. They'd redesigned their bottles. They tried to source domestically, and the smallest order they could find a domestic bottle manufacturer willing to entertain was 200,000 bottles. They'd have to build a building to hold the bottles for the next 10 years while they ran through the bottle inventory.
Yeah.
So they looked abroad. So they ended up with a plant in China, and their bottle price doubled overnight.
Right.
The impact on small business is very large, and it's happening very quickly. And small businesses don't have the reserves that the larger corporations have and the ability to ride these things out while the politicians figure out what is politically expedient and what isn't.
Right.
So there is right now real damage being done to small business by what's going on. And I've got a real concern as to how that's going to play out, because I'm seeing it directly impact customers immediately.
Yeah, there's a lot of confusion. Like we were talking to some local car dealerships, and what has happened is they said they only had 2 cars remaining left on the lot to sell, because all this forward demand that was going to happen later in the year is today, because if it's a foreign car, the price might go up 10, 15, 20. So people are consuming today, which is, isn't really being factored into a lot of the numbers. And then also, until inventory is used that was purchased pre-tariff, like at lumber yards or, various things like that, the prices may not hit the consumers immediately. And then it's up to the company. How much do they want to pass on to the consumer and how much do they want to absorb themselves? Meaning if there's a 10% tariff, they might pass 5% on to the consumer, they might keep 5%. But where I see, like to your point, John, is the supply chain. Anybody that's relying on ordering goods from a country that may have 40, 50, 60% tariff, it's going to be real.
Yeah.
To bring it in. So real
And it
decisions.
is inflationary out of the gate.
Yeah.
I understand your point that
Yeah.
it's inflationary now, but that impact changes over time.
Yeah.
But tariffs are inflationary in the short term.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
no way around that.
There will be a price adjustment.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So this into the numbers of the plans. This is back 2015, kind of where we came in. This is the net contributions money came into the plan, out of the plan, investment returns, and this is the value as of March 31st. Somebody asked earlier, what are the up-to-date numbers? If you would take about 2% off this is kind of where we are as of last night. This is the year-end funding status. Right now, take the non-union, it's 91% funded. The union is 96% funded. And this is the current rate. This is the rate we were talking about that was at 8%. If this rate was at 8%, those funding statuses would be, on the back of the envelope, it'd be up to 110, 115% funded. This is kind of what you guys contribute to each plan every year. There was a contribution, this is through March 31st, there was a contribution in April to both plans in the amount of $120,000. If we go to the next one.
Real quick, Todd, we've continued the voluntary contributions, or have we?
Not for this year,
Not for this year.
because we had the higher amount that the MMO went up.
Okay.
We did it last year, but not this year.
Right, so the other thing is, we didn't make a contribution till April, so we're not making monthly
No,
contributions.
no, we make quarterly
We
contributions.
make quarterly, we're quarterly, okay.
Yes.
And that's what this page represents. So these are the contributions coming in, and then there's retirees, the payments going out, and this is the net number. So you can kind of see, and there's voluntary contributions that would be in that contribution level. So what this is saying, there's a net cash outflow every year due to retiree benefits. In which one is this? In the union plan. Non-union, kind of the same thing. This is the allocation. This is the target in the investment policy statement. This is where the plans were as of 3/31. They're almost identical. Some of them, it's just the cash flow coming in, but it's roughly 60-40. We always have to carry roughly 2% cash, somewhere in there, 1 to 2%, just to meet withdrawals of checks coming out per month. Otherwise, that would be fully invested. Okay, here's the performance. This is the plan. Year to date, like I said, these were through March 31st. If we would adjust this for last night, it'd be about a -2 to 3%. But this over here is kind of the long-term number. Right now it's 7.25. The plan's running at 7.5. And remember, we've had a lot of market events over this time period. And to what we were talking about earlier, if you go to the next slide, the number that's really standing out is the international. 1 year, the international market has made about 8 or 9%, and where the U.S. domestic is, actually it's on the next page, has made about, lost money. So you might say, how are we only down 2 or 3%? It's the international markets that's holding it in there. And then also, to the point about the fixed income, we've made 5% in fixed income. So those two are really offsetting the U.S. domestic losses. This is cost. You're super focused on cost because the more you pay in fees, less your return. And this whole plan it doesn't include the actuarial fees, but the whole plan is basically with the investment product, our fee, everything is being run at about 0.36%. Or, basically to run $8 million, about $30,000 a year, which we find to be very attractive, especially considering where it was a few years ago. And a big portion of it is by using the index in the passive investments. That's where some of the larger investments is in the index funds. This here, this is just for reference. If you want to see how the portfolio is set up against the market, what sectors are over, underweighted, you can take a look at this. If you want to say, hey, what are the biggest holdings in the portfolio? Once you peel back the institutional mutual funds, these are the holdings. So basically, in the union plan, there's about 255,000 in Apple, and you can see some of the other names. This is the fixed income. The takeaway here is when the market does sell off, you want to have high quality fixed income. That's where the flight to safety occurs. Anything above BBB and above is considered investment grade. That's just a fancy way of saying you don't own any junk bonds. And we try to keep it right on top of the investment grade index. This is something that we keep track of too, and it's in our performance guidelines, like I said earlier, to stay in the top 50%. If we could just scroll up a little bit. Yeah, right there. So each one of these squares represent quartiles. And this right here represents the quartile you're in. So every number to the left is in the 7-year number. This 10-year number, we weren't here for this, but these numbers are bringing up the 10-year number. So of the 3,200 plans, what it's saying is, you fall in the 27th percentile, which the goal was to be, by the committee said, to be in the top half. You don't want to be the best one because how much risk are they doing that? And you don't want to be the last one for obvious reason. So right now the plan's, performing in line, if anything, significantly exceeding it. And whenever the square is larger, right, that means there's just more dispersion in that quartile. And this is like the performance on an annualized basis. And the non-union plan, it's almost everything. It's the same investments. Everything's similar, and the cost is roughly the same. Just a little scroll there. Yeah, it's 35 basis or 34,000 to run $10 million. The sectors, fixed income. And you can see the rankings are very similar. The performance disparity is just the cash between the two plans, but it's only 0.1. And I know Todd talked about the defined contribution plans, but I'll just spend a little bit on it. There's 3 plans, as you know. The 457 is the employee money coming in. The 401A plans are what the authority contributes. They're in the investment lineup. The goal is whether you're 20 years old or 70 years old, do we have the right options to build a portfolio to meet your retirement needs? So there's both index and investment active funds. The QDIA, this was something that came out of this meeting 2 years ago, is now they're age-based. One of the things coming in, people who didn't have an investment background, they would just sign up for the plan and they would put all their money in the money market. Now, the plan has been changed. If they come in based upon when they turn 65, a target date fund is being selected, and we'll show a little bit of data about that, what's been going on. This is the market values of each plan over the last few years. So they have been growing. That's investment return and what the authority and people are contributing. These are just the investment options. And I want to get to, this is the page I wanted to spend a little bit on. So these are the target date funds. I can't do the math quickly, but if you come in at 20 years old, you're going to be put into the 2065 fund because that lines up with when you would retire. Previously, it would just go into the money market if you didn't make a selection. And this is something we're observing. We haven't had, we're not the cause of this. It's the cause of what the staff has done here and what the education has done. And Todd kind of talked about it. At one point, 60-some% of the assets were basically in a money market fund, meaning people weren't investing. And that has dropped dramatically over the last 4 or 5 years. And that's taking computers out, meeting with people, having pension workshops on how to invest, education, one-on-one meetings. And you guys have done a tremendous job with that. I mean, people are actually investing in the plan. Before, they were just kind of sitting idle and collecting stable value income. And then these things down here, there's another diversified option. If somebody says, hey, I'm just a conservative investor, they can put money in there. They feel like they're moderate or growth oriented. And John from Mission Square works with people to make that decision. And people can move it out of the target date funds if they want. But we really believe that there's no portfolio that can't be built for the active participant.
John, do you see employees migrating out of the target date funds into something else?
No,
Once they're in there, they just stay
Yeah.
there.
That's what I've seen in the data. And don't forget, this committee put those in, I think it was a year and a half, 2 years ago. So all this money that's in there is just recent. And so now when somebody gets hired, they get put into a diversified portfolio versus the money market, unless they want to build their own, which is really good news. And these are, some of the performance figures. Everything, we keep track of them. We have an investment policy statement. Before there was funds out there, they would just perform. And, we would, not us, but, people would look at, hey, maybe make a change. But there wasn't many changes over the 30 or 40 years. Now we actually have performance guidelines. If a fund starts underperforming, we put it on watch. We would bring it to the committee. We have a mechanism to change it now. But like you take fixed income here, this is the passive option if they just want an index fund or if they want an active fund. So there, like I said, there's
John, any funds that are underperforming that are targeted and being looked at?
Yeah, the one we're watching closely is the T. Rowe Price, which, I can't go backwards. It's under the large cap, back one. They've made some changes there with the CIO. Yeah, this guy, is it there? Was it there? Large growth right here.
Yeah.
They're making a comeback. They've made some changes. So just because their numbers are bad does not necessarily, hey, we should get rid of them. You got to understand why. And the stuff that we don't like to see is, oh, we're going to change our process. Or we had a large team. And here, the team hasn't left, but the portfolio manager now is the CEO of T. Rowe Price. So we are watching it. I mean, this 10-year number used to be exceeding their index, but right now, because of some of the recent performance, mostly in 2022, they're underperforming. But we want to give them some time because it is a lot of work to rip it out of here. We got to notify the participants, send out disclosure. So if we make a change, we want to make sure that it's the right change. But out of everything in there, that's the only one.
It's a lot of work, but we are here for the employees,
Yep.
and it's a lot of work, that's what it is.
Yeah.
That's not the best fund, because I'm looking 10 years and underperforming 10,
Right.
5, and 3.
Yeah, that underperformance was driven by the last 3 years. So,
All right.
but that's out of all of them, that's the one that's we're watching.
Do
And
we
that's
have a standard process in place for reviewing the funds that we have
Yes.
available?
Yeah.
For example, for my bank 401k plan, we review quarterly and we benchmark and
Yes.
determine whether or not we want to take.
Yeah,
advantage.
and then like this is the benchmarks that are stated in the
So
investment
we look at
policy.
things like fund management and things, there's
Expenses,
a number of
yeah,
different factors that go into it.
Yeah, because when they, sorry.
No, I agree, like, if you go year to date or 1 year, but there's been a trend for 10 years for that fund where they're underperforming.
So if we would, if we would run the numbers as of December 31st, 22, they were actually exceeding. It's just the last 2 or 3 years that have brought down those long-term numbers.
Okay.
Because these funds, we went through a selection process, with the administration to identify when we were bringing the new plan in Mission Square. And at the time, we looked at, across all that different asset categories, hundreds of funds, and we did screening. And even like the target date funds, we brought in 4 or 5 groups that, Fidelity, T. Rowe, Vanguard, a bunch of them. So this isn't just a lineup that just, I don't want to say occurred, but there was a lot of thought into it. But the point is, they are underperforming and they are, being watched by us. And it's getting close. I mean, is this a significant amount of improvement? No, but it is. And, the thing we don't want to do is fire them at a trough, and then all of a sudden the new guy we put in, then they go into a trough. So it's a little more of an art than it is science sometimes, but they're definitely being watched. They are one of the largest, blue chip, large growth type of organizations out there. So, we might be back in 6 months saying, hey, we're getting rid of T-Row.
That's fine, as long as we're keeping an eye on them and keeping them watched.
And then, this is just a summary of what the plan's doing. And this is where a lot of the energy has been spent on the education. Through the website, it has a nice portal for the employee in-person consultation. They have group meetings, they have one-to-one consults, the lunch and learns, and every fall, Todd and the administration hosts a pension workshop that's open to everybody to come. And you guys record it and make it available.
Yeah, just on the website, this would be for the airport. Have the employees found it's easy to navigate the website, or it's very easy?
Yeah, the people that go on there, yes.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, they find it pretty intuitive, yes.
Okay, and it's just easy to navigate and get through it. Okay.
Yeah. So that's, I know we covered a lot, 3 plans. Any questions, thoughts, concerns?
I'm just thrilled with the education efforts that are being.
Yeah,
We went with Mission Square, and they've really shown that performance.
Yeah, they show up on a regular basis. That's probably what John's doing today. He's probably at some site doing education.
I'm here now.
There he is.
Oh, that's John.
There he is.
Anything to add?
You are right, but you are right, I am doing education. I'm in Lancaster, yes.
Do you have anything to add regarding the defined contribution plans?
No, other than to say that the LNAA participants have been really wonderful to work with, and honestly very attentive to learn, and it's been a good experience for me, as I hope it has been for them, to meet and to discuss their retirements.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Tommy, anything?
Nothing else?
I was gonna say anything to add? Okay, then I will entertain a motion to accept the update and on the defined contribution plan and the market pension update.
So moved.
Motion by Mike, second by Paul. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the subject motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
Aye.
We still got Ricky on board. Okay, John, thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, Todd, I think we go back, or I'm sorry, we got minutes and then we go back to Todd. So to entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the March 27, 2025 meeting.
So moved.
Anyone? Got Mike? Paul, you look like you wanted to second it. Okay, any additions, deletions, or corrections to said minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor of the subject motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Todd, you're back up for the financial statements.
And I wanted to say, and I always remember when we switched over, and Mike remembers this, when we switched over from Mass Mutual, they pretty much said we can't compete with Mission Square and the stuff that they offer. So that Mass Mutual was our previous administrator for our defined contribution. So they said we can't touch it. All right, walk through March, done the first quarter already. Wow. Well, we start off with traffic. We were less than 200 away from our all-time record for March. Only 188 off, but still a pretty good month as far as traffic. Legacy traffic is picking up, so that's nice to see. Still, we're not at the 2019 level, but overall, good month as far as traffic. This is something we're keeping our eye on as far as the seats. Our seats are up about 13% for the first quarter. We're expecting seats to be up 13 for April, but starting to see for May and June that they might be down slightly from 2024 for the same period. It's hard to kind of predict beyond that, but certainly something we're keeping our eye on at this point.
And this is information, Todd, you get fed from the airlines.
Mhm.
Is it Legacy or Allegiant?
It's all of them.
All of them, okay.
Then breaking down where we are, obviously, we're doing better than all airports year to date, so we're doing pretty good on both throughput and seats. And then if you compare us to our peers, it's really the tale of two cities there. You got the folks that are struggling down at the bottom, and then you got the folks at the top that are doing really well. And we've been pretty consistent year over year, and we're doing pretty well there. Then you break out March. March, again, we're all done with CARES. Every time I think about that, I get a little emotional. I'll miss it.
Oh, we're done with CARES income.
CARES income, yes.
We talked about that.
Right. We're done with CARES income, which is the part that I care about. The CARES expenses will trickle in during the year, but certainly I missed the CARES revenue. But we had positive net income, 434. Positive net income, better than budget. And so you can kind of get a feel for what's going on there. Some of that is timing because it's the first quarter. And some of our CARES expenses, if you remember, we kind of associated some expenses directly with that money that we're going to use, kind of one-time money, and some of that's kind of tailing in a little later. So even though we got the revenue for the CARES, some of those expenses are going to tail in a little later. One of them for sure is the demolition that you can see out there. If you came in today, you can see what's going on with the demolition. And then for the first quarter, you know, if you take out CARES, we expect it to be in the negative, but we're doing pretty good there, better than last year as far as year to date. So good stuff there. And then I just wanted to kind of compare, you know, where we were in 2019 for the first quarter, just to kind of get a feel of how much things have changed since 2019 before COVID. You can see our net revenues, and that all excludes CARES, is up 26%. See our expenses are up, but you can really see where we spent a lot of our money on our infrastructure, and that's the big number there, the 56%. But still, net income up pretty substantially, excluding CARES, from where we were in 19. So we were coming out of COVID better than we were before COVID. So that's good stuff to think about. And then Frank's favorite chart, even though he's not here, 15 straight months of positive net income without CARES and without miscellaneous income. As I mentioned earlier, April, that streak may break because we've got about 300,000 already on the books for the demolition that we have to. But again, we had the CARES money that's kind of associated with the CARES, but just when you look at it without CARES, you can see that that month might be.
And that's all straight expense on the demolition. There's nothing there that we.
No. There's nothing to depreciate. There's nothing there.
Right.
I would love to do that, but there's nothing there to depreciate.
Creative?
I don't do
What
creative.
kind of money guy's not creative?
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm not hearing this. I'm not hearing
You know
this.
what kind it is? The kind that's out of jail.
Right, that is true. I'll give it
That kind of creative you find
I'll
up
give-
at
I'll
Darien
give you
and
that.
sell next to the processor.
All right. Just breaking down our profit centers. Number one up there is CARES, and that's all of it for this year. And then parking, you can see that represents parking, and CARES represents more than all of our net income. So those are two that we kind of keep an eye on. And then kind of breaking them up at the top, you can see those little things there. Just kind of the differences versus that first quarter of 2019. We're up 478 on parking, aviation lease up 325, but we're actually taking a little bit of a hit on our terminal, 233 down, and also on Queen City with some of our exciting stuff associated with the stormwater and that sort of stuff. Breaking down our budget variances, the 415 was money that we originally budgeted in May. That we took all of our CARES in February. So originally we were only going to take $2 million, but we took it all in February just to make sure we got it all. So once we get to May, that budget variance will go away. De-icing, thanks to Connie and her team. Always want to acknowledge that. That's always nice. Thank you for your hard work for all that. Always like that miscellaneous non-recurring income that we have on the de-icing. It does make things a little bit favorable. and you can kind of see what's going on. But when you look at revenue items on there, it's really the de-icing and some of the, and it's really just the de-icing when you look at what's really driving the budget variances. That's the really only one in CARES, obviously, is up there as well. And our net interest, we try to do a really good job of making sure we move money to get the best interest rate, and that's a better than budget there. But all these other things are really expense driven, and long-term, the revenue is really what takes you home. Breaking down our variances by budget, by personnel and non-personnel. You can see our personnel is down some, and a lot of that is really attributable to our benefit line, and still up 7% versus last year. Same with the non-personnel, still up 8%, but not as robust as what we have in our budget. And a lot of that is we had the hours when you see the FTEs, but we didn't have the personnel, should I say, the benefit costs of some of the additional full-time employees. And that's kind of what you're seeing here. So even though it's only down 6, a lot of that is part-time. When you look at the bodies, I look at the total hours, not just the bodies. Obviously, the bodies do matter particularly when talking full-time, but part-time could be somebody working 10 hours a week or somebody working 29 hours a week. It fluctuates. And then breaking it down by department, just seeing some of the variance, the ebbs and flows of our business. And then you get to see our 6-month cash flow here. That 129 on line 11 is the final number. Once our audit is approved, that's the number that we have in there. It was 500,000 that we had in there as a placeholder, but that is the final number that we have in there for the airline settlement. Some of the other ones are just timing and some other tweaks. And you always see this number changes. This is when we change pretty significantly, just based on the ebbs and flows of when we get our grants and some of our timing on our capital items. Breaking it down, where we are after our 180-day total reserves, you did look at the pieces there, but it's 180 in aggregate. We still have 202, and we go down to 141 with some of our projects that we're paying over the next 6 months. And this is some of our assumptions. The big one down there now toward the close to the bottom is that RACP, which we're keeping an eye on. Ryan says we're going to get that sooner than later. He's nodding his head, so if it doesn't come in, you can point at Ryan. But we have it in there.
In the estimate, what's your latest guess?
So a couple final documents we've had to give them, which seems like every time we send them something, they ask for something else. So July, maybe June, but again, conservatively keep it in November just in case.
You don't think June or July?
I'm going to say September, but hey.
Which year?
Yeah.
All right.
Better than what we were thinking a couple of months ago, where we were looking at
2027.
26, 27.
Yeah.
And then that red line is our 180, and then you kind of see our peer line. Once we get the updated stuff, it's done sometime in July, August. So once we get it, we'll update the peer average for 2024, but we have to wait until everybody finishes all their reports, and it's usually out somewhere around mid-year. Once we have that, we'll update the slide. Any questions? Had a good month. John did a good job. I try to keep it short and sweet.
Entertain a motion to accept the financial report by Todd.
Oh, yeah.
Motion by Paul, second by Mike. It looks like he wanted to make that motion. Okay, any additional questions? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the subject motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
There we go. Motion carried. Okay, audit update.
Just a couple words on the audit. We had our kind of last discussion, I think it was last Friday, with the auditors. No news is good news. Nothing that we're concerned about. Everything seems to be on point. John, we have our auditing firm will be in here. Scott, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm under John's these days. Scott will be here for our finance meeting next month to walk through our audit. But at this point, we don't foresee any issues. The only issue that we talked about, and it's really not an issue, is just the timing of the GASB, which we talked about before and even last year. So no concerns. We don't see any big issues. Yeah.
Sounds good. Any
Any
questions for Todd on the audit update? Okay, Todd, thanks. Do we have any new business today? Any need for an executive session? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll turn.
We're good.
Okay, back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Sylvette, would you call the roll for the executive committee, please?
Glenn Reedman,
Present?
Mike Stershik,
Here.
Frank Fasciano, John Hayes,
Here.
Paul Anthony.
I'm here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Any public comment?
Not at this time.
Okay, we'll go to the first action item. I'll take a motion for approval of the minutes of the March 27th meeting. Paul, second by Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Approval of the Florio, Perucci, Steinhardt, etc. invoices for March of 2025. Motion, Mike, second John. Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Nominating committee, John.
Okay, unchanged from last month's report, we have candidates for all of the open positions. We'll review them at the board meeting next week. I have not received any contact from anyone else in regard to interest, so at this point, we've got a full slate. We'll talk about it more on Tuesday.
Thank you. Air badge, ABE announcement.
Sure, I'll take that one, Mr. Chair. Just a reminder, all of our ID badges expire in May. So if you have a badge with an expiration date of May, you'll be receiving an email on Monday that you want to check your spam folder and make sure it doesn't inadvertently end up in, letting you know how to go about renewing your badge. So emails will ship out on the 28th, and you'll be able to see some instructions there. You'll be able to renew online, so it's pretty simple or different process. But Steve, I don't know if you want to add any other.
So it's important that you have your identifying documents, whether it's passports, Social security card, driver's license.
Two forms.
The two forms when you start the application process, because you can mobile, tablet, desktop. It's real interactive and easy. You can literally snap photos of your document with your phone and upload them to the website. So as long as you have that with you when you start, 10,
Good
15
point.
minutes,
Yeah.
it's pretty easy.
Because I didn't, so it took me longer.
What are the two forms of ID that you need?
Passport, driver's license, social security card.
Those
There
are
should be a list
three
of,
typical.
yeah, the list of the approved.
So I need to go to my safe deposit box.
So just a reminder, we've got a little bit of time there because it's at the end of May, but we just want to make sure people are aware they're going to get an email and don't think it's spam. So it'll come from
Yeah,
Airbag
if
ABE.
you don't interact with the system over 30 days, you get tossed, and then, you know, if you go past May without renewing your badge, you have to come back in and do fingerprinting and all that.
Yeah.
And so that has a new user guide, link to a new user guide if you're having issues.
Is that yearly? Would you do these?
So no, it's not a yearly process.
29.
29. So you already
You're good.
went through the process because you were doing it.
Finished.
Yeah, you're good.
Kevin,
Everyone
you can
else.
do it anyway if you want to.
Yeah, you could.
I got it down now, if anybody.
Yeah, our new board members have used Airbadge, so
They're familiar. Yeah, everyone else is not.
Just out of curiosity, why do we have, if we are existing badge holders, why do we have to go through the process of uploading all the documents, et cetera, instead of just renewing?
it's a good question. So in the past, we were a paperwork office.
Mhm.
This last year, in 2024, we're now using Airbadge, which is an online, it's a digital process for badging.
Mhm.
All of our paper documents I need to get rid of. So the only way to do that is we're required to rebadge every 5 years now. So in order to get everybody from the paperwork side to the digital side, every old user needs to do the process.
Okay.
Saving trees.
Any other questions? No? All right, so we'll wait for the email on the 28th, and then I'm sure we'll have some questions.
Sure. We're gonna have lines like the DMV for real ID.
Okay, the Civic Plus,
Agenda platform. I can walk through that one. So the platform we're all used to, so just talking about changes again, Novus Agenda is going away. The company that provides that is not supporting it anymore. So we're moving over to Civic Plus Agenda platform. And we'll do that officially in June, but next month we'll run Novus and Civic Plus in parallel. So we'll have both platforms running with the information. We'll post the meetings in Civic Plus for the May committee and board meetings. But just to let you know, we're making that change. So we'll have to push out email that gives everybody a new
ID and
login information, so that it'll give you a temp password, create your own, all that kind of stuff. So I don't know, Glenn, is there timing or anything you want to say about when people might see an email on?
Yeah, I think what we were planning on doing is trying to send those email notifications out after the board meeting on Tuesday, so Tuesday or Wednesday timeframe.
And that will come from?
I'll ask Sylvette to just send kind of a notification that, hey, we're sending these out, so.
And will that come from Sylvette or will that come from Civic Plus?
So we'll send kind of an advisory email from Sylvette first, so it'll come directly from Sylvette. Then after that, you'll get an email from, I believe the name comes from Civic Plus platform, and I think it says no reply at civicplus.com. So just
so
look
people
for
will
those
really
emails.
need to be paying attention to their spam,
just make
junk
sure in
folders next week.
case your email platform puts it into junk mail or anything like that.
Okay.
So if you don't see that by the end of next week, certainly let us know, and we'll make sure that you do get access to that email.
Yeah. Okay. So new platform for all of our meetings, but similar look and feel, similar operation in terms of how you access information and agendas and all of the stuff that you have in there today.
Any other comments? Seeing none, any new business? Seeing none, Madam Solicitor, do we need an executive session for the executive? Okay, we are adjourned. Go on.
So welcome to the April 24th, 2025 Business Committee meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. So Beth, can you please call the roll?
Don Gottschall,
Here.
Justin Grimshaw,
Here.
James Irwin,
He's here, he's online.
Yeah.
Here.
Frank Facciano, Kevin Surface,
Here.
Jonathan Strauss, Chris Worley. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Sylvette. Is there any public comment?
None at this time.
So first in action items, I need a motion to approve the meeting minutes for March 27th, 2025.
I'll make that motion, Don.
Thank you, Justin. Can I get a second? It'll have to be someone online.
Second.
Thank you. Was that James?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any additions, deletions, or changes? Okay, hearing none, motion passes. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan to discuss the 2025 capital improvement budget.
Thank you, Don. Morning, everybody. So what we wanted to bring forward to the committee was not the program updates, but really an approval update based on some changes that we've identified basically at the end of the first quarter currently. So kind of as most of you know, obviously we come to the board in November with our overall capital program that goes through the assumptions that we have. If you can maybe make it a little larger so that, or wider. The middle, yeah, the middle. Yep. Thank you. So, again, we come to the board with assumptions and timing and kind of Todd's points all built in the cash flow based on assumed schedules, construction starting in the spring, reimbursements, and so forth. So we have an update that we wanted to bring to the committee. Really, it's revising one large project and adding two newer, smaller, but still significant dollar values. But really the big thing here, again, due to timing and managing our cash flow, the net LNAA change throughout 2025 spend is no change. And really the way that equates to is, and I'll get into the details of some of the cost variances, but Hangar 7 door went up about 700,000, and I'll go into why that is. The second one, Great Plains, is more of a finance piece. Again, kind of like the Civic Plus we just talked about. Great Plains, which is what our accounting folks use for all of our accounting management, is going away, so that's included in there as well. And then actually something that came up this past week in one of our de-icing trucks, one of the tanks needs to get replaced, so we're adding that as well. So in order to accommodate that and due to the schedules of the projects that, again, we put in the budget and the cash flow, assuming, again, everything works out perfectly in terms of timing, 2 projects down there, Hangar 9 interior roof installation and the AHU1 chiller tower, are really projects that we're looking to defer next year. We were already kind of in that process given where we are with some of the other projects and these ones. With the AHU, we still have to evaluate what needs to be done. It's basically the large chiller tower right over the leaching counter over here that we're going to address next year. And then the bottom one is really project cash flow timing. So, excuse me, all the changes that Todd goes through every month that we coordinate on together is really timing of projects, when they're starting, when they're stopping. You know, even when we finish a project, let's say in November, for example, the invoices, you know, we're paying 2 months later, which can go into the following year. So that's really where the timing change is. So the big one, again, just to bring to the committee's attention, is the Hangar 7 door rehab project. And I think, Paul, you actually brought this up the last committee in terms of, it's been on the list for a while. And there's a reason for that, is because originally we budgeted, you know, starting about a year and a half ago, 1.2 million. It's right under about 2 now. And the reason for that is, again, the original 1960 hangar doors, Bethlehem steel hangar. So they're solid doors. The issue is all of the components are original. So all the tracks, all the gears, all the mechanical components are moving the doors in and out. And there's 6 of them. And I believe the 2 on the ends that are supposed to move don't move anymore. Really the big change with the cost, and you'll see here, as we brought in the company to look at it, and there's really only 2 that we found even in the country that focus on these specific type of doors. As we started doing some of the design and we looked at it, and again, everything vintage 1960s, whole new electrical panel, electrical feed, electrical heat trace putting in the track, you know, for snow and ice control needed to be added. The cost increase also included work, which again wasn't included based on the electrical piece, is adding an electrical subcontractor in. So we actually coordinated with the company to work with WindGap, who again, we know very well. They do a lot of great work here, and they've actually done a ton of work in Hangar 7 as well. So it's coordinating all of that into the proposal. The other piece, again, because of the weight of the steel, the doors, and the glass that's actually in them as well, they actually beefed up or enlarged the lower the door track assembly to accommodate the weight of the doors, which obviously has some cost. And then the other piece, when we did the report a couple years back, we looked at, do we replace the doors? Do we rehab them? Do we do something different? The other piece that was basically added, so any mechanical or moving part, it's getting replaced because of the age. So the upper door track itself and the rollers are all now included in the project. So I know we've been having issues over the last year with some of the components that I know, even talking with Darren and their team, there's been more issues recently. You know, it's obviously not ideal when you have to take equipment to literally push the door open. So that's kind of where we're at with some of these pieces. So it's a critical project that we needed to continue. And as I mentioned, with the timing of some of the other projects, it made sense to defer those given where we are with this. So again, as I mentioned, no cost amendments are requested. We just wanted to identify kind of the shifting of the one, which obviously was an increase in cost, and then adding those other 2 to the capital budget. So we're just looking for approval, those updates basically as, or allocations as presented.
Any questions? I need a motion to approve the 2025 capital improvement program budget updates.
So moved, Christopher.
Thank you, Christopher. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay.
I was trying to give him time.
Was that Kevin? Okay. All right. Any nays or abstentions? Hearing none, motion passes. Okay. Ryan, I guess you're gonna discuss the capital project updates.
All right, great, thank you. So I'll go through some updates here as we do every month. Change this graphic a little bit from all the blue and pink that was there before. It was getting a little busy, so we've cleaned this up. Really, what we're doing now, even with our stakeholders, is basically doing of all the different packages and in phases of projects. We're just showing basically the next 2 months of what's happening out on the airfield. So you can see, and I'll get into some of the detail later, Taxiway Alpha there on the left in green is in progress, working again on some of the infield shoulders for the runway. And that TS is actually a test strip that they had to do prior to paving Alpha. Again, that's an FAA requirement to make sure the pavement specs from the plant that are coming in are what we need. And actually, it's worked out pretty well, as with all the projects over the years. Our RON apron, which is the basically additional pavement for aircraft that come and stay overnight if needed, we've almost repaved that whole thing with test strips, which is basically paid for by the FAA. So, we'll take that when we can. Moving into the different packages, package 5, again, starting that up again. The big thing is we're actually coordinating with the contractor to, based on the FAA requirements, is they have to change, I can't remember the light, is it over 150, 180, remember Steve? Lights that they have to change to LED in one night. And the reason they have to do it in one night is because it can create pilot confusion if you have one half LED, one half incandescent because of where the runway ends and stops. Isn't clear when you're coming into land. So that's a big coordination that we're obviously working with the electrical contractor and obviously the GC on this to coordinate the manpower to make sure we can do it, which they've done at other airports. So that's the biggest thing with this package.
How's it going?
So package 6.
On your retirement again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Going.
Good. Busy. I got.
Thank you. All right. Package 6, really this is going to start after package 5, but really it impacts the cargo area, and it's going to be a multiple phase closure based on that one way in, one way out for cargo. So kind of brief update there. Taxiway Alpha, so as I mentioned, basically this section here they're currently working on. Closed 24/7, still having access around with back taxiing on the runway, but you can see the issues in the pavement. They've already started milling out the base underneath is actually in pretty good condition, which is great. But that's actually closed until about mid-May to get that piece completed. So working through that. Cargo, nothing major here. Still really waiting on FHWA for the grant, as we talked about last month. We are looking to advertise the airside component in May, and the biggest thing is because we're looking to get FAA funding for the taxiway, so we want to keep that moving as we work through this process. Parking garage, same thing, nothing new other than our bi-weekly meetings. We're continuing on. We're looking sometime in June to have kind of an internal 30% review meeting, which really sets up where we're going from here with timing, costs, and layout. So still coordinating a lot of that at this point. Government building demo, really since last month they started the demo. Again, as you can see when you come in, it's quite the difference. Took them about a week and a half to get all the interior demoed out. Obviously the bulk demolition is ongoing. Once they get the main structure down, they'll coordinate on the annex, which that'll be a bit more surgical in a way because we're keeping the basement and it's a bit closer to some of our facilities. So we're just gotta make sure we're coordinating with them. And obviously coordinating with some of the upcoming hotel development that we're waiting on. So a couple photos. Again, the inside obviously was not in very good condition at all, but you can see obviously how they're making progress, and the team's been doing a great job working through that. Air Handler 4, again, this project's also going very well, knock on wood. The police station, as I mentioned, was complete last month. They're currently looking to reopen the portion that Allegiant uses following Tuesday, May 6th. So really having the contractor being done by Friday, next Friday. So again, that's going well with where they are. Kind of go through some photos, and then the back hallway, which is really what's left, they're working through as well. So kind of as we mentioned, because of the new HVAC and ductwork required, you're basically replacing all the ceiling grid, and we actually took advantage of, with everything being open, actually basically raising the ceiling in some areas and opening up the space to not only make it brighter with the new lights, but actually feel more open based on what we're doing and some of the columns and everything else. So again, a lot of good work coordinating with everyone there. Comp pay we talked about last month, the vehicle service road and the hangar 7, that was completed just the beginning of this month. Got to wait 30 days to do the final markings, but that one was actually done ahead of schedule, in and out, and again, coordinating with the tenants to get around the, around the hangar. Moving to Queen City, electrical vault lighting, really just working through closeout documents and final punch list, final pay applications. So we'll get that done here pretty soon. Queen City roof we talked about before. That project is complete. They actually have a inspection today. Yep, that's today. Actually down there with some of my staff, contractor, maintenance, roof manufacturer, just to make sure everything was put in the way that it should have been to get that 20-year warranty for the roof. Queen City taxiway alpha study, we talked a little bit before. Got some comments back from the FAA. They're recommending we shift the taxiway 40 feet. So we're working on the environmental documents now that's required. So next year, we'll look to get a grant for that design. But between now and then, it's working through cost estimates and confirming what phasing will be required to get the funding from the FAA to do that project. Because they got to obviously give us 90% of whatever that money is. Braden, again, with some of the runway edge lighting, state-funded project. We actually put the project out to bid this past month. Bids due May 8th, so likely next month we'll come back to the board looking for that award, hopefully, depending on how the bids come in. The way PennDOT works is once the bids are received, then we can submit for the actual grant paperwork. So we have the grant basically allocated, but we can't submit it until we actually get the bids in hand, so you're not just using estimates for the grant amounts. So that'll be an exciting one to do, and then everything goes according to plan, they'll do that work in the fall. So we did last year a little bit, you may recall, is at the end of the quarter, we kind of go through some of the departmental projects and just kind of briefly show budgeted 2.75 for some of the projects. And you can see 8 have been completed, 13 are in process or ordered, and then 11 are open. And you can see kind of some of the breakout with the priorities that we talked about, obviously starting with priority 1, going through priority 3. But some of them are, again, they're smaller, but still substantial projects. So again, snow removal push box replacement was replacing one that we kept having to weld together every winter or multiple times throughout the winter. A big one, IT server replacement every 5 years, had to do that one. Our showers actually needed to be rehabilitated, so actually did this nice epoxy coating to get the water issues that we were having under control. And then airfield trim mower, they had some other smaller equipment that we purchased, but just kind of some quick updates on some of those still important projects. Nothing really major here other than updating some of the extended project costs based on where we are with some of these projects. Obviously, government building progressing. Some of these other ones next month with Taxiway Alpha will go up pretty substantially based on what they're doing now by mid-May timeframe. Nothing really else to note there. That's all I have. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Okay, thank you.
All right, is there any new business?
Chris, I think we gotta discuss the RCO that we spoke about.
Let's go into executive session.
Okay, yeah, I don't see it on the sheet, so I just wanted to make sure it was out there.
So,
We're doing
an info session to discuss.
Is that what we're doing? Okay.
so can I get a motion to go into executive session?
I'll give you that.
You need a second?
Can we still do?
We'll see everybody on Tuesday at noon.
Yeah, we can still consider the board. Yeah, we've had that in the past where we deferred to board when we didn't have a quorum. So that won't slow
I knew
anything
that was
down.
gonna happen, that's why I was trying to rush.
Yeah.